good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are tuning in from, or if you are catching us on replay. This is The Awesome Journey, and I am your host, Kelle 𝒔𝒆𝒏𝒆𝒚, along with my co-host in care, Christy Howard. And we're just two girls that connected on LinkedIn 15 years ago, live on opposite sides of the country, have giving hearts, a passion for paying it forward. And I may have prayed to be living louder in my purpose. And now here we sit in front of microphones, bringing you the awesome journey. And for those of you who have been here before, and for those of you that are new, our primary goal here is to bring incredible individuals to share their unique stories and challenges, because we all need to be reminded that we are united in our personal journeys. And it doesn't hurt that they bring a lot of motivation, inspiration, and hopes to our lives either. And I have to say that today we have 100% crushed this goal with our
You guys
guest.
are making me blush.
Yeah, sorry. It's going to happen. With our guest, Mr. Dan Do Something Epic Horgan, who is a brand evangelist, the founder of Texas Free Range, and hit the marketing scene very loudly in 2019, following the normal transition that most of us take into marketing. He worked 24 years in the Air Force with AWACS. He also had a stint with the Baltimore Police Department working narcotics and SWAT. And somewhere in there did a presidential detail. And I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that you wanted to be a writer for Marvel. And I can 100% see that. So we want to get to Dan's journey and share his story and spend as much time with him as possible. Do make any comments in the chat. It is open. Feel free to connect with him. We will share all the links as we talk through this session. Before we turn it over to Dan to get more info from him, I will turn it over to my co-host in care, Christy Howard.
Hello. Yeah, always excited to bring somebody both on, new on. I get to learn. Kelle does deep dives. I just sort of learn. Everybody knows that I'm a huge supporter of the Blue Line and the military. So for the fact that he worked in Baltimore, SWAT, narcotics. I'm from Delaware. I know what that town's like. So anyway, I'm really excited just because that journey from where he started, what he's done, and now to go from two very well-known brands, it's pretty cool. But he also likes archery. So I might have to have the conversation about guns versus archery, because I've never done archery, but I like my guns.
That's great. Yeah.
Well, we might just lose some viewers there, but anyway.
It's all right.
Whatever. So anyway, Dan, thank you. It's all yours.
No, yeah, Kelle, Christy, thanks for having me. And when we were talking a little bit earlier, I think I did do a LinkedIn Live once. So everybody, if you're listening, I think, I know.
You
Michael
just
Quinn.
crushed my goals, Dan.
I know. I can't remember. It was back in the 𝑣𝒐𝒐𝒆 days. But if you guys follow, if you know Michael Quinn, huge LinkedIn voice for military. Yeah, I think I did one with him like a couple years ago. Like, let's say probably 2 or 3 years ago. I'm not sure.
It really doesn't matter. You're doing it with us. That's all that matters.
Yes.
You did it with us.
Yeah. So I mean, joined the Air Force as a kid, just a little bit after college. But that was when we talk about the writing thing. So I went away to the University of Bridgeport, which is in Connecticut. And when I was up there, that was the deal. I wanted to write for Marvel. And I was 19, but I remember writing Marvel, and I still have the envelope and the letter that I wrote to them, and they wrote me back. That was a big thing that I wanted to do. But that story I talked about on another podcast. I actually I came home because of a girlfriend, and we broke up, and I'm going out to a community college back in Baltimore. I see some A-10s flying overhead, and I was like, hey, I'm going to join the Air Force. And literally, 19, about years old, whatever, walked into the recruiter there in Maryland and Baltimore and joined the Air Force, and that was all she wrote.
So what did you fly?
Yeah, well, so I joined in 91. So I've done a couple of different jobs. You mentioned AWACS. I mean, that was one of the jobs. So that's where the presidential detail comes in. So I joined, and I wanted to be a PJ, right? So PJs, pararescue guys. That's what everybody, but I wear glasses now, and I had surgery for the last 15 years. But back then I really had really bad eyes. So I'm in basic training, and they ask you, like, they come in and do one of those orientation sessions. And so the PJs come in and they're like, "Hey, who wants to volunteer?" I raised my hand, but I was wearing my birth control glasses, and he was like, "Sit down." Like they already knew, and I was, because like there's a certain range. Crushed. So the Air Force made me security police. So now it's called security forces, but back in the 90s it was security police, and it was broken up into two different ones. So I'm in training for that. Well, I'm in training for that down at Lackland in San Antonio. The Presidential Honor Guard, right, who does all the Air Force funerals at Arlington and stuff like that, they come down on a recruiting trip. And being from Baltimore, and I'm like, Washington, D.C., that's an hour away. Yes, sign me up. So I, raised my hand and tried out, and 5'10's the cutoff, and that's exactly what I am. So people with my build are usually on the firing party, the 21 gun salute. Yep, got selected, and that's what I did for my first 2 years.
Who was the president?
Bush. So I was there 91 to 93. So I did Bush's departure when he lost, when his last flight with the Air Force One. I actually was on that cordon when he was going up on his last flight out. But yeah, so like all the funerals at Arlington. I mean, there were hundreds, if not even thousands. I mean, you were doing 2 or 3 sometimes at Arlington, but like the State Department, and like I've done joint ceremonies at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, where like all the services walk up the back steps and are there, done things like that. And so that was 2 years, and then the Air Force said, "Hey, you did such a good job. You get to pick where you want to go." And so I got the choice between Wyoming or North Dakota. I picked North Dakota. I didn't know. Yeah, right. So I spent
either way, it's going to be cold.
2 years in Minot, North Dakota, as a security police, out in the missile field, being a fire team leader, responding to alarms for the missile complex.
Oh, wow. Hated
that, but my daughter was born, and my ex-wife and I, my wife then, my ex-wife, my daughter was born. I was like, "Hey, I got to get us out of there." So I cross-trained, and that's how I got an AWACS. So then I cross-trained in AWACS, and so I flew.
Explain AWACS to people who don't know what AWACS is.
Yeah, right. Acronyms. It's the military thing. We always throw them around still. So it is the big plane that has a huge dome on it that spins, and what it does, that's an air-to-air radar, and then there's a crew of I don't even know what the crew is nowadays, but I mean, 20 people or something like on the crew running that. And then they're talking to fighters in the plane, but you can talk to the ground. So did that for 4 years. Wow. I did get divorced, but from my divorce, it's where I met my wife now. So we've been married 22 years. Bethany,
she's military. She's military, correct?
She is. So she is Air National Guard, but she's on active duty orders. That's what took us from Oklahoma down to San Antonio. Yeah. So that's where I'm at now. Just even so many people know, like, we're on LinkedIn. I'm in Reno. I'm literally in the lobby, and they have these really cool booths. So it's like this cool background that I have. Yeah. So she's TDY out here, visiting one of the HR sections.
Acronyms. People don't know what you're saying.
What acronym? HR? Oh, TDY. Yeah, temporary duty. So she's on a work trip. She's on a work trip.
I'm just saying, right? Some people will be like, "What is he talking about?"
So this is my first like mil spouse trip, right? She's on this work trip, and I was able to just come, and then I can work from my computer. So my in-laws came down from Oklahoma and are watching our youngest. We have an 11-year-old is our youngest, and watching him, and so we're out here.
Cool. And AWACS, just so everybody knows, I need to explain what it is, and I think I'm correct when I say this. It's Airborne Warnings and Control, right?
Yes, systems. Yep. And then so I did that, and then I got off of active duty, but then went back into the reserves. So in the reserves, I went back to being, because now they called it security forces. So I go back to doing that. I'm at Andrews Air Force Base, and a little thing called 9/11 happened. So I was back on now active duty orders, which is great, but I'm back on active duty orders for 13 months. So a year was back on active duty down at Andrews. But we weren't deploying. Like I didn't go to Afghanistan as that job, and ended up going to, they call it Raven School. So it's when you fly with the cargo planes, the austere environment. So I flew all the missions not that second year, but like that later half of that time, the South America. So like Peru and Colombia. Yeah, so like Cartagena and Bogota, stuff like that. So I did that, and then 9/11 ended, but that's where it falls into the police, right? So now you got to like, okay, so how were you a cop? Like, how's that work out? So I worked with a lot of guys and gals who were civilian cops on the outside because of their reserves, and they got activated, and we all were brought into Andrews. Yeah. And so I caught like the bug. I mean, you're already doing kind of law enforcement, but like there's really real law enforcement, which
Let's go downtown Baltimore to get real.
Yeah, right. And so I did. Yeah, so I applied during that time. I applied, and how the schedule worked, because we worked like 12-hour shifts, so we had like 3 on and 2 off. But some of those days off were during the week and everything. So I was able to do all of my testing, because it's a lot of testing to get into a police department. Written, physical, medical, and all that. So I was able to do that. Boom. Right when my orders ended in January of 2003 is when the academy started. I mean, you talk about just like, again, timing, right?
Right.
So immediately.
I mean, because then you were in narcotics at first, or were you SWAT first?
No, I patrol. So I did patrol for 2 years. Like any police department, most of them, you have to. Someone, like Jeff said, Kelly had to look up that acronym.
Of course,
so
she has it written down.
Everything.
No, yeah.
Me?
So most police departments,
you have to, remembering right.
Most police departments, you have to do like a minimum amount of time, like any kind of job, so 2 years. I did 2 years on patrol. But as a patrol kid, I was already writing some search warrants and stuff like that, which in a big city like Baltimore was almost common. In smaller cities and stuff, people go years without writing. And as a patrol kid, I had like 4 or 5 under my belt.
Where were you located I know Baltimore, so where were you located?
Yep. So I was in the Eastern District. So Monument, Madison Street, Greenmount, North Avenue. East side and west sides were usually predominantly the heavy violent sides of the city.
Yep.
Started there and I finished there. Like I never really left there, and then went into a special enforcement unit. And then kind of that's where I learned like the real drug trade. Like my partner Louis at the time taught me so much. And then you start making really drug arrests, and then like the citywide unit kind of notices you, and you make friends in networking. And that's where I became a detective in the Violent Crime Impact Division, which was the citywide unit. But then I just stayed on the east side because they had divisions inside that little section. And so I just stayed on the east side and, bought heroin a dozen times legally, just doing some,
and we've had guests on like Bob Hemmer and Jay Dobbins who've done that, bought drugs, bought guns, People think it's just on TV. It's not. There's real life people that are actually doing this crap. Doing the bad people.
And they were even saying that those type of transactions were even more dangerous than them infiltrating into certain areas, just because you're dealing with, reckless people. You're not dealing with a cartel who is completely trained, and just that mindset of saying like doing a local drug deal is more dangerous than dealing with, weapons trading with the cartel.
Well, either way, they're pretty dangerous. But the person who's selling the drugs is usually doing the drugs.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been in a dark alley, right? And so again, the Eastern District of Baltimore City, whatever, is predominantly African American. Yeah. And so as a white guy, you're literally infiltrating in, and there was always a certain level of how far I could even go in to buy. At that point, they know that you were a cop. Like, okay, like you can't. And there would always, like there was a time actually my lieutenant I bought crack, and he was like, it was deep in, and he was like, all right, let's see if you can do it. And I did. I pulled it off. And these weren't big. These are street level. It's like a guy with like $200 worth of crack, and he's selling it. I mean, and I'm not making excuses for them at all for the drug dealing, but it was their living, right? It's but you got to stop it. And
they don't know anything different. And just to share with our viewers, in the next month or so, we're going to have somebody who had that lifestyle.
I actually just commented.
He doesn't know. You don't know anything different. This is how you were brought up.
No. Well, and it can happen. So Ben Owen, if you guys follow Ben, I just made a comment on Ben. Yeah, because Ben just he tagged me on his video. It's @wefightthemonsters.org. Is it? Hopefully,
we would love to get Ben on, but Ben
I don't think
they're just so busy.
But and so I loved it, but that's it. And then, but people say, if you loved it so much, then why'd you leave? Kind of even when we talk about a black rifle, if you loved it so much, why'd you leave? For leaving anyway. So real quick, so I did SWAT for a year, so which was super prestigious and everything. But the city, kind of like anything, I felt like the city at the time was abusing us just a little bit, as in we were just a strong arm. You know, like murders happen, which they happen all the time. You would just go in heavy enforcement, closing bars down. I mean, we were doing real world stuff, obviously, because it was a full time gig, but just I had the family, and it was kind of, again, right, that family dynamic was affecting it. So then I went back to my spot never got filled in my drug unit, so I was able to go back to my drug unit. But doing that, I would tell you, like anything egotistical is when you get a little bit overconfident, and so now I'm like, okay, now I'm super trained, right? And I was doing a drug deal. I was in a car. I had flipped a guy, and we were trying to get someone bigger in. Murphy's Law went down. Next thing I know, the guy has a silver 380 pointed to the back of my head.
Whew.
I'm still alive. He did 7 years in federal prison. But that's when my wife is like, all right, you're done.
You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're done.
It is a very, very hard life for the wives.
Yes.
For the husbands that are married to the wives that do this.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah, and I made some. It is, and I made some stupid decisions in a sense. I mean, I'll talk openly. My wife and I, that was 2010, 2011 was a very rough year for us, just because I was really trying to do a lot. And at that point too, I was already now a TAC-P. So that's the other thing, right? So now I go into the guard. I switch over from the reserve to the guard because I hear of a super cool unit up in Pennsylvania. That's TAC-P, tactical air control parties, right? The guys who get their JTAC status to drop bombs. I was the 6th guy hired into the unit, right? Passed all my training and everything. So that was 07. And then that's when I didn't do SWAT to 09. And then, because after I did TAC-P, I was like, I'm a Navy SEAL. I can do anything, right? Just that mentality. That's what you kind of, I mean, I wasn't a Navy SEAL, so TAC-P, but that's the mentality you get. And sure enough, like, you're a SWAT. Yeah, SWAT was great. So I do that, but that's when then I deployed 2011. But when I say I made a lot of stupid decisions, it's just like you put so much time and effort, right? And I know family is first. Then, young Dan, I didn't have the emotional intelligence. I was staying out till 4 a.m. with the squad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then thinking it was okay. And, it wasn't. I think you do need to do that, but there needs to be a healthy blend, right? Sure. A work-life balance. But
you're not going to learn that in training. That's just life and maturity and understanding, is this relationship going to work or not, and having communication.
Well, which is why, like, conversations like these, if there's, I say a young kid, if there's someone who's in their 30s and stuff and they're running and gunning and doing it, and there's like, man, like I'm fighting with my family. Yeah. Take it from like the old guy, put the brakes on a little bit. And
again, I interrupt, and there's reasons why. I'm going to pull in John Moore.
No, good. Yeah.
And for the men to hear Brotherhood, go click on their business on LinkedIn.
Love them.
This is for the men to help understand that when you go hard and you're going home and the wife is like, what the hell? This is a group of people that can, be there for you, because being in where you were, and we didn't have, society didn't allow men, you were just big and you had to go do it and go party and everything. And the hell with the wife, she's, nagging me and everything. And it's not that way it should be, because that's a partnership. And with the guys, we, obviously we're huge promoters of them, and we're women, because we see that, a relationship of, as if you're a mom, a sister or whatever, especially when men are in the military and the blue line. We've had too many people on this show that they show you the rawness, and you're sharing that the rawness. So let's go back. I had to interrupt.
No, that's great.
No, and we were on. You talk about we were on a razor's edge, as I call it, and we went to and then so that's the thing. So we leave. I go back to Oklahoma. We go back to Oklahoma, and I get a full-time job with the Air Guard as a TAC-P, as a JTAC, and I deploy a year later. I deployed in 2011.
And where did you go to Afghanistan or?
Yeah, so I went to southern Afghanistan, and so like literally from one firing pan to the other within that year. So, but we did counseling, we did marriage counseling, and it was faith based. It was Christian. Yeah, her name was Billy. Yeah, she was a Christian lady, and we went to that, and not that she saved us, but God definitely. It
Mhm.
was, yeah,
Oh, she was
it
a
was pretty.
sure.
Oh yeah, it was 100%. Yeah, and yeah, I'm still right married to Bethany now. Right, marriage is tough. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
but
Yeah,
it's
2 years. Trust me, I know.
yeah. So we're at 22 years. Yeah, we're at 22 years.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
March is our anniversary. So yeah, it's great.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So well, thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, so Baltimore, and then to now the JTAC stuff and the TACP, and I retired from the Oklahoma Air Guard in 2016, and and then I did some contract work where I went back to Afghanistan, but that was a year and a half. So I was a King Air is a dual prop airplane, and there's a sensor on the bottom, and so it flies overhead, and you look down. So I started doing that, and then became the site lead. So I was up Boggerman and down in Kandahar, and that's great money. I mean, that's hundreds of dollars, a day. I won't throw numbers out there, but it's six-figure income for like part-time work if you think about it. But again, my wife is back home. I got three boys, right? I have a daughter too. Not that I never mentioned her, but she's an adult, right? So I told her she was born in '95. So
Right.
my daughter lives in Manhattan. I gave her my post 9/11 GI Bill. So she went to Flagler College, my post 9/11 GI Bill, and now works for a random penguin house. So she's a graphic designer. She does book covers. Yeah. So
Nice.
That's
but
great.
she's an adult, right? So I sometimes when I talk about kids, she's 28. So I had that. So we did that for a while, and then I was like, "Hey, this is dumb." And so that's why I get into working for an aviation company in Oklahoma, and eventually working through that through a friend, Stan. I worked for Daryl. So Daryl Wilkerson was the CEO of the company at the time, Commuter Air Technology, which is now called Meta Special Aerospace. And I worked for Daryl, and my title was senior analyst. So if Daryl's listens or ever listens to this, like I didn't analyze anything for Daryl, but we just didn't know what to call it. It was very much one of these like sergeant major, first sergeant roles, right? Kind of scenarios. And so we came up with senior analyst to the CEO, which was great. But then that's where Bethany. So I'm doing that, and that was going great. But Beth wanted to, further her career, and she was at the Guard unit there in Oklahoma, but then had a chance to take some active duty orders down at Randolph Air Force Base in San Antonio.
Okay.
And then so I was like, yes, right? Like, she's like, what do you mean yes? I'm like, not that I was ready to go, but I knew Grunt Style was there. I knew Black Rifle just didn't move there. And I'm a huge Yeti fan too. Yeah, right.
And you
I
got
knew
the
Yeti's up in
Riverwalk.
Austin.
You got the Riverwalk.
Yeah, I don't care about the Riverwalk.
Yeah, but three pretty
Riverwalk,
good companies.
Yeah. But that's when we started this transition in marketing and everything. I just, so when I worked for Daryl, like Daryl actually sent me to London, and I met people that the company that eventually bought. And so I was going to board meetings and everything. So I was getting into what EBITDA was. And, so for EBITDA, I can actually tell it's something, it's economics finance, but the EBITDA stands for something, but it's important in the financial world. So, but we were doing like all of that, and I was involved. And so when I came down, it took about like 3 months. So I did some contract work, down in San Antonio. But then I saw it on Indeed, right? It's the shining moment, and it's a LinkedIn story that I've talked about. I'm on Indeed, and there's a job posting for Black Rifle, and it said executive assistant / project manager for the CEO's co-CEO.
I'm going to interrupt.
Yeah.
Black Rifle Coffee is the coffee. Ben Owen is also Black Rifle Coffee, but not the coffee. So just
coffee.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I see that and I apply, but as I hit apply, then I'm also on LinkedIn, and I was connected to Scott Harvey. So Scott was the COO at the time, and I didn't know him, but we were connected, right? Like anything, right? So we're first level there, connected on LinkedIn, and I sent Scott a message, and I was just like, "Hey, sir, Dan Horgan, I applied for that role. I did that role for a CEO in an aviation company, in Oklahoma, but the ad, this was back in when I say back in the day, right? This is 2019. The ad literally read, I'm sure the recruiters like Nicole and everybody would cringe, because the ad literally said they wanted a transitioning 03 who used to be the general's aide. And so like literally they were targeting like an Air Force, like a captain in the military who used to be a specific job, and that's how it read. And so when I messaged Scott, I was like, yeah. People love the subscription. Yeah, no, I still drink silencers. I still get my silencer smooth subscription. So so I tell Scott, I was like, hey, how about, a combat E7, right? Who's done this, give me a shot. Hindsight being 2020, what I didn't know is that they've been already not having this role filled for about 30 days. So I think Evan and then the company was going crazy. But so right time, right place, I get in there, I think I do a good job interviewing, and I'm there and I'm available. So they're like, sure, great, you got the job. So I didn't even interview with Tom or Evan. Right. So and I got hired for the role. Yeah, and I got hired for the role, which was super scary because day one, again, I haven't met them yet. Right. And I'm hired and I'm in their office. So people who've seen Black Rifle, the San Antonio office that they had like an owner's suite, we would call it. And so it was like Evan's desk, Logan's desk, eventually what was my desk, and there was JT, Matt, and then Richard Ryan. And I'm sitting there because they give me my computer, so I'm typing away, trying to log in and do normal, HR onboarding stuff.
Onboarding.
And they walk in. Tom and Evan walk in, and you're like, "Oh, great! Like first time meeting you, and I'm already hired, but I'm sitting here like, oh, I hope this goes." Super scary. Yeah. Well, because Tom Davin, if you guys have done any research on Tom, I think Tom was born a CEO. Like he just, Marine Corps officer. Harvard School graduate, and then just all the positions he's had, throughout his career. So Tom is pretty, that's very good. Right. And then now Evan, the founder, right. And then his personality. Yeah. So it was something sitting there with that. And then I guess the rest, it's history. Right. I'm there, and it's just, it was truly phenomenal. The atmosphere to everybody there, there was a lot of play, right? But there was a lot of long hours and hard work, and just, when I talk about scrappiness, I drove from San Antonio to Salt Lake City.
Wow.
Transporting, not either coffee or doing something, right, for different reasons, right?
And for anybody who doesn't understand driving through Texas,
excuse me,
it's like forever.
Right. Well, and it just, like the post I did today on my LinkedIn to talk about just friendships. It's pretty incredible, just because I have friends, right? I literally, who they don't work there anymore, neither do I, but we still hang out. We still talk. So
what an interesting transition, though, from all your work and then going into, now granted, all of these guys come from the same cloth that you do. So you all have the same, work ethic in the sense of, y'all make decisions fast and know how to do things tactically, and you can move at 100 miles an hour, because that's like the thrill of a startup in most cases. And that is where you and I, Dan, originally connected, because I am a 𝑣𝒐𝒐𝒏𝒆𝒚 fan, and have been way before they were public. Still am, but definitely because you guys just did rad shit. Like, you pushed the envelope and you were so unapologetic. But it was so good. And I had a few people because some of my most popular posts were related to whether I got a new 𝑣𝒐𝒐 ball cap from a client, or, those kind of things. And I had people message me and they're like, "Do you work for 𝑣𝒐𝒐? Are you on their marketing team?"
I actually asked you that at one time.
And I was like, "No, but I would love to be in that room, man." Because I just feel like it would be so awesome. And just how much fun was that?
Yeah, it really was. I can't even I went there, I got to go to SHOT Show 2 or 3 times with the team, and just and I say the Rolodex, it's not a Rolodex. People I got to meet who I still occasionally could message. I'll throw Tim Montana out there, right? So Tim Montana is a country singer, country rock singer. If you're not following him, follow Tim. But he has a new song that's a little bit more rock, and so it's on Octane, right, on Sirius. And I didn't know. I followed him, but I guess I didn't see it. And I'm listening to Octane, and I hear the song, Devil You Know. I like it, right? And so I ended up just DMing Tim, right? And I was just like, "Hey, love your song, no weirdo, kind of thing." And then he DMs me back, right? Tim doesn't, he has enough, I'm sure, followers and stuff like that, but actually DMs back and just like, "Hey man, blah, blah, blah." So it's so cool to be able to have conversations like that, again, that are, lasting. Like Tim knows I'm not a 𝑣𝒐𝒎𝒆 anymore, right? But just things we did in the past. So yeah, it was just super cool. I'm ecstatic from the friendships that I've made, because there were relationships that'll go right. And in a civilian, we talk about civilian transition, that's rare that you would stay friends with people that you used to work with. The military, it's kind of common, right? Because you've either been in combat with them, but like most military units, like you don't have the choice to leave. Right. Like in a military unit, you're not going to be like, it's not working out, man. Like I think I'm going to go ahead and resign. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, right, getting fired from the military is even more difficult, because you're like, oh my God, how's that guy not, or gal not, kicked out?
Right.
So yeah, you be these people. So you're with them for years, and so those bonds, end up being years. And so for the civilian side, for the people, that I hang out with and still know is awesome.
Yeah, and then
so it was super fun, Kelly. Yeah, it was
awesome.
A lot of fun.
I just think it would be so glad to be around that, because there's so much energy and just so many cool things they've done. And I mean, man, and they've blown up, which is insane. Yeah. When you decided to leave there, because I would imagine, here now you've transitioned, and I don't want to say into normal work life, but I mean, into a startup, you're not working anything that's really focused on military or first responder. But when you decide to leave there and you go to another organization, which is not anywhere military based, like that transition had to be the one, I would think, that would be like, this is different.
Yeah, it was. So I bebopped around this year. I kind of talked about it again here on LinkedIn. But what the moves that I did make were either military or veteran themed, because what you're talking is about Pabst, and so they were veteran. The ones I were was veteran themed, or even outdoor themed, because that's right. Yeah. That's what I know, and at least what I think I can bring the value to. I'm not into, I don't know, women's purses. So I would, I probably wouldn't do, right? I probably wouldn't authentically be able to.
Unless they're camo.
Right. But, push that. Right. But if it's archery and veteran related, or, there's a Yeti, there's Turtle Box Audio. If you've seen that, like the really good speakers, if there's something like that, like you could see that and it's believable. And then I believe in it. And I did those. It didn't work, and that's where Pabst goes. So Pabst was, I talk about that, wasn't them at all. They reached out to me, and I was really grateful. And so I created the LLC that I have now. So Free Range Texas, I created, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do with it. So it was kind of like, I don't know, maybe a side hustle is what I was thinking it was, and I wasn't sure. So it's like a safety net, and and so you're playing with it, but Pabst gets a hold of me, and I was just like, yes. I mean, I do coffee and beer, right? And Pabst is, red, white, and blue, right? It's good, but Pabst owns, that's the other thing. You got to realize Pabst owns a ton of other brands, right? I mean, you can go on Pabst website.
Where are they located? Where's Pabst located?
So they're headquartered in San Antonio. So they used to be, it used to be LA for a while, and then but the headquarters officially is here in San Antonio. I say here, I'm in Reno this week, but I live in San Antonio. So it's in San Antonio. So, but they own the brand. They own Lone Star, Rainier up if you live in the Northwest, Stag and all these. So they own a lot of other brands, and then which are good. Natty Boh, right? So being from Baltimore, Natty Boh is one of the brands that fall under the Pabst. Yeah. So I was there, and very openly, and we talked earlier, and if Pabst hears this and everything, like I attribute to them, like it was great. It was just the role, and it was me. It was still knowing myself, and I think my operations side of my brain, where it's Excel sheets and Word documents, is fading a little bit. I'm not sure which side of the brain is the.
I think that's the right side. I think it's the right side.
I think it's fading a little bit, and the creative side is flaring a little bit. So I just was having a difficult time, like I'm gonna say, assimilating what you're talking about. I was just having a hard time, but it wasn't them. And I talked about this. HR called me the day after I resigned, and it's quite unusual because, it was. I think it was 30 days. I think I was maybe there a month and a half, and I really told him, and I was super thankful. But I was like, oh, it's not you guys. It It was me. Like I just, again, knowing myself. And so I dove back into free range Texas. And I already had some clients, and I don't leave my current clients. I mean, they're partners, right? Because I believe in the organizations, because 2 are nonprofits and they're better nonprofits. So again, it's something that like I'm, all in for them. Yeah.
Love that. And you are also, there was someone, and we don't need to call out the company, but I just think, because I know we've got some job seekers here and who have been struggling, getting hired, getting let go, like within a short period of time. But you did have and I know you'll correct me if I'm incorrect.
No, you're fine.
It was a remote position, but you were there for a short period of time, and then it was like, this isn't working. And I mean, it was a mutual decision, but it was like, but you hired it as a remote position, and now you're saying you need to have local. And I think that's a lot of things, we've been seeing people have. So, if you want to explain a little bit about that situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was a archery retail company in Pennsylvania. So again, you go back, okay, you're in San Antonio, and now you just said it's a retail shop in Pennsylvania. Yes. And so they did, they wanted it free remote. And again, that was, I don't know, what was that? I think that was like 2 months as well too. But I already been out there. So that's where companies in general, I think they need to do a better, not even like them, but in general, right? When they realize that something's remote, you have a salary you're going to pay this person, but now you're going to pay their travel. Right. And you got to really, so Texas to Pennsylvania, rental car, airfare,
expensive,
right? And then food. Hotel, if you don't have something kind of hooked up, hotel, and then food, right? Yeah. That's a $1,500 bill, probably, right? Yeah. And within 2 months was already out there 2 or 3 times, right? But now let's go back to, why I understood it. Like when I got the call, I was back in San Antonio, and they're like, hey, we're looking at this and this isn't. And I was just like, yeah, because marketing is it's not impossible. So I don't also want to talk myself out of anything. It is difficult when there is like a physical retail location, and like, the whole stories and reels, right? And getting photographs for the day. If you're not there to do it,
right,
it's hard to tell. It's like Steve, like I could tell, like Steve was the archery shop manager's name. It would hard for me to call Steve, like, hey Steve, get out your phone and run through the store video and the bows or something, right? Yeah, like you can't do that. So
I've said that to many clients too, as far as that goes. You can have a hybrid, but I think as a marketer, and I've always felt this way with my teams, you've got to have in-person time on the regular. And I don't think video conferencing does not cover that in any way. And exactly like you said, you can't run around and shoot some video in the office and then send it over to me.
No, but I've, and I watched, again, I wasn't in media for Black Rifle, but again, marketing and the media and branding, everything was, so intertwined. Is I got to see like how they performed and how it was done right. Yeah. And you can go, like, even if it's so for me, I don't know, what's Dallas is maybe too far. Houston's like 3 hours away, right? So you hit Houston. I could spend 3 days in Houston, and that's not away from the family too long, like once a month. But in those 3 days, if I already go with a media plan in hand, the amount of content that, I can do, which is, again, I'm not a photographer or videographer, but again, that's part of it too. When you look at marketing, I know I'm going to be there these days. If I hire that photographer or videographer to be there with me, and then I'm directing them, hey, this is what I need. And you already go with that plan in hand of what you need for that. Like that 1 week of content, like, you can get enough for months. If you do that, so 100%. I think it's possible, but like San Antonio to Pennsylvania was
as you said, using marketing, you have to be there. You have to be able to market it and tell the story. And we're not like dissing remote. I love remote.
Right.
But remote, is going away because a lot of people are having issues with that.
It's just a challenge. Like I would tell you, like a lot of, even when we look at partnerships and sponsorship, like I was reaching out to local organizations that were there in the area. And again, while phone calls and videos are great, emails, but that's what I would try to set up, was when I would go out, then try to meet them, in person afterwards. And so, but
Right.
it always was that extra in person. Yeah. So it's definitely not impossible. It's just a little bit difficult, but then I think some of it again goes to a geographic,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
maybe Texas to Pennsylvania, a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
Plus the time
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, for so
Cool.
many reasons. But I also think there's just that sense of being around the other people. And like I said, I just feel as a marketing leader, same thing. You've got to be with your team and sharing that experience, because it's like you were saying earlier, it's a relationship with these people. And
Yeah.
you just can't do the same things remote. And some
Especially when
people
it's,
some people
yeah, well, I was
don't.
gonna say, especially when it's local, right? Yeah, that's super local too, right? Like, yeah, like they weren't they're not. I mean, they're still there. They're not. It's not a national brand. They're
Right.
selling national
Right.
brands, but they need people to come into the store, right?
Right.
Then they do have a website. That's the other thing too, right? So you can push a lot of e-com, right? There's email, right? So I was doing email marketing, sending emails out, but again, it's you got to build that list up. And how do you build that list up, right? And you're playing that whole game, yeah.
So share with me how you went from guns to archery.
Yeah,
I'd love
really
to do archery, but I'm terrible with darts, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
I shot, I mean, obviously a lot. Yeah. I shot a lot in the military, and then obviously on the
SWAT.
police department and SWAT. Yeah. I am not like a sniper marksman. I'm more the combat reactive shooter. Like I love the pie plate quick kind of shooting thing. So I really so I did a lot of that. But it wasn't until year like what 1 or 2, right, for Black Rifle. Even Evan. So Evan and a team, I really owe that a lot to them. So they started getting into archery. And they have a lot of friends. So I'm wearing John Dudley, one of John Dudley's knock on. If you're in the archery, this is one of John's awesome sweatshirts. They did a thing, right? I've talked about it a lot. Total Archery Challenge. Evan bought, God, he'll probably kill me. He bought 10 or 20 bows from PSC archery that we got engraved on the cams and the handle, the logo and everything for BRCC. Yeah. And we gave them to employees, right? There were, certain,
Oh my gosh.
10 or 20 wasn't enough. Yeah. So I was lucky enough. Seriously. I mean, I was lucky enough. I got one. And that was actually one of the trips. I was bringing some other ones up from San Antonio to Salt Lake. And I literally got in, and so that's a 20-hour drive. So if anybody wants to drive from San Antonio to Salt Lake, it's a 20-hour drive. So I broke it up into 2 10-hour days. So I was on that second 10-hour day, and I get in, and they shot it in the parking lot there at the office in Salt Lake. And they were like, yeah, let's dial in. I'm like, I have just been on the road for 10 hours. And they're like, we don't care. So it was like 7 at night. The sun was still up a little bit. I mean, here I am dialing in. So Christy, yeah, so I dialed in, and I mean, I don't know. It sounds, I guess, cliche, but yeah, I fell in love with it just for the sheer fact of archery versus shooting. I mean, you can literally do it in your backyard. I mean, I guess there's city rules and ordinances, I'm sure, but depending on where you live and stuff like that, 20 yards is a really good distance you can play around with. I go to Camp Bullis in San Antonio, which is like a 10-minute drive from my house. They have an outdoor range, right? And then again, when I was at Black Rifle, we had a 1,200-acre ranch that we leased where we used to shoot there. Yeah.
So
but it's like this year, like,
is it easy?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm tiny, so it's like, that I look at that the bow is like might be taller than I am.
No, so you would do, so these are compound bows. There's different types of bows. You have long bows, traditional bows, but these are compound bows. And the compound bow, you can dial in the weight, the pull, right?
Yeah.
So you can, I don't know what the lowest is, but you could probably do like a 30 or 35 pound pull, which isn't too bad at all, really. It's not. Now you're not going to shoot. Again, I don't know. Quote me. I'm not the archery expert. I don't think you're going to reach out to. You probably could reach 100 yards, but it might be difficult. But you're not, right? But still, you're going to be able to hit 40, 60 yards, right? And that's where these challenges, these archery shoots that we do, are still pretty. Not all the shots are long, but some of them are really technical, and so they can be a real technical shot at 40 yards. So you're good. No, and so my wife actually got into it. My wife and I really rarely share any kind of sports in a sense that we would do together. But this guy Jason Tabansky, Jason was one of the. He's paralyzed, so he's in a wheelchair, Army veteran that we brought out to the Veteran Adaptive Athlete Shoot, and Jason gave Bethany one of his bows. And then she picked it up, and so she's shot with me now. So But yeah.
Well, Kelly, I think, we're going to have to come to Florida again.
I know.
Do that.
I totally want to do it. And am I the only one that thinks of Ted Nugent right away when people say that?
Yeah. No, I tell you, these things, and so it's one of my goals. So there's one, so Total Archery Challenge is like, when I say the main, it's probably like your premier 3D foam archery little event they have. And it goes from like 1 April to 1 August, but it's 10 different states. Usually. And I think they're trying to add more. Yeah. And so Sean DeGray's the owners, and Sean, goes around, but like the first one is usually like Oklahoma. So that's like an 8-hour drive. So I'll do Oklahoma again. And then San Antonio is the next one. So there's one in San Antonio. So I'll do San Antonio. Back in BRCC days, I've done them all. Actually, the only ones I don't think I've done, I didn't do South Dakota, but like I've gone to Big Sky and stuff like that. And so I think this year, somehow, wherever I'm working, if I'm working for myself or, if I get hired somewhere, who knows what I'm doing, right? I'm a hot mess. I want to make sure that I travel. I want to make sure that I travel to, I want to go like either Colorado or Tennessee. That's not far from Texas. If I could drive, you can drive one of those. But I want to hit another one. Definitely. That's one of my things this year to do that.
So with PAPS, you've been with PAPS how long, and what exactly are you doing?
No, I left them.
Oh, you already left. Oh, I apologize. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I love that. You already left. Oh, yeah, I already left. Yep, I already left.
Okay, so that's where your LLC.
I was the network, and this is when I talked about that. I'm the network development. I was the network development manager. So it was the contracts between the distributors. Okay. So if they were buying, selling. Yeah, so it was a lot of Excel sheets
and not enough creativity.
The marketing team, I would say the marketing team and branding team sat behind me, and I would hear some of those conversations, and I'd have to put my headphones in just to drown it out because I couldn't, like, it wouldn't be fair. Like I can't, like I didn't work there, right, or in that department. So,
right.
But I would have loved to, like the Lone Star brand manager, like was like right there, and I would have been like,
So if
I have ideas.
You had a drink, right? Okay, so with your ideas, and if you had, because you're in San Antonio, and there's, you're also close to Austin. Where would you like to go next? I mean, because you're good at branding, and the outdoors and stuff like that. What companies are you, like your dream jobs or whatever?
I have 2 things in the fire, but I got to keep them.
Okay, not a problem.
Close. But I will talk about is what, which, and I would tell you in a conversation, I would even call them an interview. I think in the conversations that I've had with them, I did get asked, as we were talking, like, why? Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, not like why work here, but literally just like, what do you want to do? Mm-hmm. Like what you just said, like you've done a lot.
You've done it. Yeah, you've done it.
What do you want to do?
You've done a lot. So it's sort of like, where do you want to land next? Or what do you want to do when you land? So you don't have to tell a business. So what do you want to do when you land?
Yeah, so it's not that it's a funny thing, but I think it's where my post, and so when I post like on LinkedIn, I usually personally, for my personal stuff, I usually just come up with it the night before. And so like the post that I did today, I just thought about
everybody should follow them. Connect with them, follow them. Great posts.
Yes, great content, and he plays music to most of it too. I just have to say.
Yeah, right. I just speak of. Oh, I'm going to embarrass her. Bethany just showed up.
Bring her over. She wants to say hi.
Put your face on. Yep.
Where is she?
Oh,
look at her. Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you for your service.
Because
you have your earphones in, obviously not.
Yeah.
Duh.
That's fine.
We do love
she
our
was texting
strong
me.
women.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we do love our strong women.
Yes, I want to take a little transition because I of course
Sure.
have been following you since BRCC days, and I've continued to follow you because I love the fact in you're self-proclaimed radically transparent, which I love, and you are. Which is why you're fun to follow, because you are just transparent. You get the general sense of who you are. But when you put up a video, and I know this video went somewhere because I think we talked about this on our initial call. You were doing a run, and it's not a mud run because this was like, beyond. And when you did that leap over, I mean, I was in agony just watching it. But the fact
I'm still
you played that, and then of course played on your recovery through the whole thing. And didn't that video make some national something?
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on, Bethany's. If you guys, no, it's fine.
That's okay. Talk to the wife.
Yeah. What
It's
do we have?
important.
About 10 minutes? Are we doing an hour? Is that
Okay,
like,
we'll wrap up after this.
We can shut it down like in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, whatever you get. Yeah, I mean, but 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You have to go. Well, you guys go. They're gonna go. They're fine.
Okay, well, we're gonna
Lunch with air guard. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Yes, ridiculousness reached out to me, and I signed away whatever if they wanted to play it. I haven't got notified if they have played it, but there were people like Aaron and Archer. So Aaron has a dog, yeah, and he did it the first whatever. And I think he's got like 1.5 million views, and I think like Heather did. Black Rifle actually put it on their page, so it's somewhere down there. But it was like the second highest viewed one for like that year or whatever. I think it was last year or 2 years ago. Yeah, I don't run that fast anymore.
For those who haven't seen it.
Yeah, now I'm gonna have to dig dive, or just have Kelly send it to me.
Yeah,
it was a Spartan race. I've done Spartan race before. I was Spartan race, and there's a hill, and you're supposed to go under, but like I thought I could make it. And Derek Carver, Army guy, amputee, was there, and Derek's on the side videoing it, and he's just like, Dan, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm gonna jump. And I'm like, but man, if I don't make it, I'm gonna split myself. And he's like, all right, you better make it. Next thing you know, I jump, and yeah, I was lucky. I did not hit my groin. It was actually my hamstring. So my hamstring
looked horrific.
Yeah, my hamstring absorbed all the damage, and I couldn't feel my foot for about 2 minutes afterwards. So there was a strong thing where I was like, wow, like I have now permanently hurt myself.
Would that have been would you have been able to be on that show Jackass or whatever? Wasn't that show?
Yeah, right. No, because I didn't do that intentionally. And Jackass that was all intentional.
Right. That's planned on doing
this was but I floated, like when I hit, I knew it was so bad, and I like floated in the water afterwards, which was all mud. But I get up, and that's when I didn't know that my foot was just destroyed. Well, my leg. So I get up out of the water, and like I can't stand. So Jenna Bacon's great. So she's an Army veteran too. Jenna was there, and like she grabs me and walked me off. And but about 2 minutes later, the feeling came back in my foot. But that was like the very start of it. But here I am with Derek's an amputee, right? And I was just like, I got to keep going. So I hobbled my butt the rest of the way, just for the sheer fact, again, like you're with people that have it much worse in a sense. And so I was like, yeah, and I hobbled my way through the rest of that stupid thing. Yeah, I didn't even go to the doctor.
Oh, and that was a long recovery, because you guys, I'm telling you, it was a jump, and there was a very large section of water that he was trying to jump over, and like here's the ledge, and his legs went like this, and then he fell back.
Yeah, it was my left.
And was just floating there for a bit, and you're like, holy crap, what just happened? But you knew it was bad. Like it just
it was bad.
It wasn't one that made you want to be nauseous, but you're like, ooh, that's going to leave a severe mark.
Yeah. So I try to stretch a lot now before I run and stuff. My speed, like I can tell like that. It's like being old and breaking a hip, like it's definitely slowed me down.
Oh yeah, especially a hamstring. Like once you do it, it's like it doesn't take a whole lot for that to act or aggravate. So I guess now that we are after the top of the hour, let's and so you can get back to your family. I feel bad that she's finished and we still had you here now.
She's going to lunch. It's the lunch with the guard.
Well, now you can go meet her. Go meet her.
Yeah. So just sort of some final thoughts for our audience, and man, what can we do to help you?
Really, I mean, I'm good. I think my message, and I've seen a few today, like Ben Owen, stuff that he's putting out and what he's doing with those houses, right? Rehabilitating those houses. If you go, like if you don't know who he is or what he's doing, look up Ben and him, support that.
And we're all
September's
connected to Ben. You can look at our
Yeah.
We'll
comments.
share the links because he is
Yeah.
incredible. I'm pretty sure he never
Yeah.
sleeps.
September is, still what we're, still in Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month.
Yeah.
And that'd be my final one is just, September's going to end and we'll move into the next thing. But, I
And
think
it's really hard going into the holidays. It's going to be a tough one for me.
Right. Yeah. So that'd be the thing, right? It's just suicide prevention and awareness, whatever someone can do if they're watching this and they hear this, whatever, right? Or I think all of us, we just keep, help promoting that and letting people know. I mean, the boot campaign does the "You Matter," right? Like that's their slogan, and it is. And I like to say "never alone," but I'm sure someone else says "never alone" too. But like it is, like, because there's so many opportunities, resources, out there to help someone. And I've never been, suicidal. I made the joke to my wife I'd be homicidal before suicidal, which is, it's not funny. But you know what I'm saying? Like, and so I've had friends. I have a TACP, a young kid who it happened to. He's like buried with my watch. So we all had the same watch. They couldn't find his. I put mine on him, right? And so I've been affected in my lifetime, through it for sure. And so it's just, that'd be the only thing, that I asked. Like this is two, just supporting, you guys keep supporting that, but whoever's listening, if they didn't know about something, like, support it.
Yeah, love it. Christy?
I'm all about it.
Amen.
Huge about the mental health, especially, I mean, everybody.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing the men, it's really it's so hard for men. My heart
You just don't talk about it. Yeah.
because it's a stigma.
Like I'm 52 now. Like I just turned 52 and I don't think my emotional intelligence probably kicked in till somewhere in the 40s. Like a 35-year-old Dan was.
Mine hit about 55.
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up on that one. Better late than never.
Right.
Amen.
Yeah.
Final
it's all about just supporting people, the active listening and, having empathy with everybody. We're going into a hard time. We've had a hard time. We're going into a hard time, and I don't want to sound so doom and gloom, but people are struggling, and it might not just be their jobs. It could be their relationships. It just can be themselves, because we are our worst critic, and we're great at beating ourselves up.
Right.
But Dan, thank you.
No, Kelle and Christy, thanks. I loved it.
Yes. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Any of the things that we talked about, the connections, we will include in the comments, and we will also include in our post promos of this episode. And Dan, we can't thank you enough. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your time. We so appreciate you. You are a gift, and we couldn't agree more, particularly on men's mental health. You guys, let's make this a regular conversation, because it should be. And that being said, we will also include the links to the Here Brotherhood, because they are a group that, of course, Christy and I cannot promote enough about being there for men and having an app that's specific to help each other and be able to talk to one another. And that's so important. And to know that you're just not alone. And it is a free app currently. So please do check it out. That all being said, super fun today. This was great for me for so many different reasons. And we look forward to seeing everyone next week at 1:11 p.m. And just remember, we are all on this journey together, and together we do make it awesome.